The battlefield of strangers. The battlefield was burning. Smoke covered the sky, turning day into night. The ground was broken, filled with bodies of fallen soldiers, both human and alien. Explosions shook the land, and the sound of gunfire never stopped. Captain Ryan Carter lay behind a broken metal wall, breathing hard. His body was covered in wounds, and his left arm was bleeding badly. His rifle was empty. His helmet was cracked. He had lost his squad. He was alone. His ears rang from the last explosion, but he could still hear enemy soldiers in the distance. They were searching for survivors, killing anyone they found. Ryan knew he had little time. His vision was blurry. He needed to move, but his body refused to listen. Then he saw something strange. A few feet away, lying on the ground, was an alien warrior. The alien's armor was shattered, its blue skin covered in wounds. Its breathing was weak. Ryan had never seen this species up close before. They were the enemy. They had killed many of his people. But this one was dying. For a moment, Ryan felt nothing. Just emptiness. It was just another enemy soldier, right? The war had taken so much from him. His friends, his home, his peace. Why should he care about an alien? Yet, something in his heart told him to move. Ryan forced himself to crawl closer. His body screamed in pain, but he ignored it. When he reached the alien, he saw its eyes flicker open. Glowing blue eyes, filled with pain and confusion. The alien tried to move but failed. It spoke in a weak, broken voice. Why? Help me. Ryan didn't answer. He didn't know the answer himself. He could have left. He could have ignored the alien and saved his own strength. But instead, he reached out and touched its chest, feeling its heartbeat, slow, weak. The alien was dying, just like him. Ryan looked around. The battlefield was deadly. If he stayed here, enemy soldiers would find him soon. They wouldn't care that he was wounded. They would shoot him on sight. He had two choices: leave the alien and find safety, or try to help an enemy. His fingers clenched into a fist. He hated this war. He hated what it had done to him. But he was still a soldier. He had been trained to protect life, even if that life was an alien's. With great effort, Ryan grabbed the alien's arm and tried to lift it. The alien winced, but didn't resist. It was too weak to fight back. "Come on," Ryan muttered. "I'm not leaving you here." But his own body was failing. His legs barely held him up. His wounds burned like fire. Every step felt heavier. He dragged the alien, step by step, toward a pile of broken metal where they could hide. Then he heard voices. Enemy soldiers were near. Ryan quickly dropped to the ground, pulling the alien with him. He held his breath, pressing against the wreckage. The alien's breathing was shallow, but its eyes were open, watching Ryan carefully. The voices got closer. They were speaking in their alien language, laughing. Ryan didn't understand the words, but he understood their meaning. They were searching for humans. They were hunting. Ryan slowly reached for his knife. It was his only weapon now. He knew he couldn't fight many of them, but if they found him, he would go down fighting. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Ryan held his breath. The alien next to him remained still. Its blue eyes met Ryan's, as if understanding the danger. The enemy soldiers stopped just a few feet away. One of them kicked a fallen human body and laughed. Another one checked his scanner. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest. If the scanner detected him, he was dead. Seconds passed. Then, they'd moved on. Ryan exhaled slowly, his hands shaking. They were safe, for now. He turned to the alien. It was still watching him, breathing weakly. Ryan saw something in its eyes, something he didn't expect. Gratitude. Ryan looked away. He didn't save the alien for thanks. He didn't even know why he did it. Maybe he was just tired of all the killing. Or maybe he wanted to prove that humans were better than this war. But there was no time for deep thoughts. They were still in danger. If they didn't move, they would both die soon. Ryan took a deep breath. His energy was fading. He was barely holding on. But he wasn't going to give up now. He looked at the alien again. "Can you walk?" The alien tried, but fell back. Its strength was gone. Ryan sighed. Figures. He would have to carry it. With one final push, ignoring the pain, Ryan lifted the alien's arm over his shoulder and started moving again, one step at a time, because for some reason, he wasn't ready to let this alien die. Not yet. A choice that changes everything. The cold wind howled across the battlefield, carrying the smell of smoke and blood. Ryan Carter clenched his teeth as he dragged himself forward, his body screaming in pain. His vision blurred, his breath came in ragged gasps, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Beside him, the alien warrior struggled to move, its weight pressing against him. Ryan barely kept them both upright, his legs trembling with exhaustion. Each step felt heavier than the last, but he forced himself forward, knowing that if they stayed in the open any longer, they would both die. The enemy patrol had passed by just moments ago, but they would be back. Scanners would sweep the area. Drones would search for survivors. Ryan needed to find cover. Fast. Through the smoke and rubble, he spotted a half-destroyed bunker up ahead. The structure was barely standing, its walls riddled with bullet holes, but it was better than nothing. It could buy them time. Ryan sucked in a painful breath. "Come on," he muttered, gripping the alien's arm tighter. The alien, still weak, tried to push itself forward, but its legs nearly collapsed under its own weight. Ryan caught it just in time, groaning as he shifted its weight over his shoulder. "Damn, you're heavy," he gritted out, forcing his feet to move. They stumbled toward the bunker, their shadows flickering under the dim red glow of emergency lights still running from the ruins. Each step was torture. Ryan's body screamed at him to stop, but he didn't listen. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they'd reached the bunker's entrance. Ryan kicked the metal door open and half fell inside, pulling the alien with him. The door slammed shut behind them with a loud clang. Silence. Ryan lay on his back, chest heaving, trying to catch his breath. His wounds burned, his head pounded, and for a moment, all he could hear was the rapid beating of his own heart. Then, a weak voice beside him. "Why? Save me." Ryan turned his head. The alien warrior, Karish, as he would later learn, was watching him, its glowing blue eyes filled with confusion. Blood dripped from the wounds on its chest, staining its cracked armor. Even in its weakened state, it still looked dangerous, its sharp features carved with battle scars. Ryan let out a humorless chuckle. "I ask myself the same thing," he muttered. The alien stared at him, waiting for a real answer. Ryan sighed. "I don't know, all right. Maybe I'm just tired of watching people die." He rubbed a hand over his face, feeling the dried blood caked on his skin. "Maybe I just didn't want to feel like a monster today." Karish's gaze didn't waver. "We are enemies." Ryan scoffed. "Yeah, well, enemies don't mean much when you're bleeding out together." A strange silence settled between them. Outside, the battlefield still raged on. Distant explosions rumbled in the air. Somewhere far away, soldiers were still fighting, still dying. But here, in this ruined bunker, a human and an alien sat side by side, neither knowing why they were helping each other. Ryan pushed himself up, wincing as pain shot through his ribs. He needed to check their surroundings. They weren't safe yet. He pulled out a small flashlight from his belt and shone it around the room. The bunker was mostly destroyed. Half of the ceiling had caved in, and wires hung loose from the walls. There were no supplies, no medkits, nothing useful. Ryan cursed under his breath. They wouldn't last long in here. Karish shifted beside him, groaning in pain. Ryan glanced down and frowned. The alien's wounds were deep, too deep. The blood seeping from its side was dark and thick, pooling beneath it. Ryan hesitated. Should he help? It was one thing to drag the alien out of danger, but treating its wounds, that was a different level of madness. Karish must have sensed his hesitation because it let out a weak chuckle. You fear touching me? Ryan scowled. I don't even know if your blood is toxic. Karish smirked, the corner of its cracked lips curling up. Not to you. Ryan sighed. Great. Now I'm playing medic for an alien. Shaking his head, he reached for his belt pouch and pulled out a small emergency medkit. It wasn't much, just some bandages and disinfectant, but it was better than nothing. Hold still, he muttered, tearing a strip of cloth. Karish didn't protest as Ryan pressed the bandage against the worst of the wounds, applying pressure to slow the bleeding. The alien flinched but remained silent. As he worked, Ryan couldn't help but notice something odd. Karish's wounds were healing. Not fast, but faster than human wounds would. The bleeding slowed quicker than expected, and the torn flesh seemed to knit itself back together, just slightly, just enough to make a difference. Ryan sat back, staring. That's not normal. Karish gave a weak shrug. Not human normal. Ryan narrowed his eyes. You have some kind of healing ability. Not enough, Karish rasped. Not without my core. Ryan frowned. Your core? Karish weakly tapped his own chest, right above where his armor was shattered. Energy core, damaged. Without it, I grow weaker. Ryan exhaled sharply. That explains why he's in worse shape than I expected. If Karish had some kind of biological energy system that helped him heal, but it was broken, then he was in serious trouble. Ryan leaned against the bunker wall, running a hand through his sweat-soaked hair. He had no idea why he was still helping this alien, but now he was too deep in to stop. He looked at Karish, who was watching him with tired, unreadable eyes. So what now? Ryan asked. Karish hesitated. Then, with great effort, he reached for a small device hidden under his damaged armor. A weak blue glow flickered as he pressed it. Maybe. Karish's voice was barely above a whisper. I save you. Ryan stiffened as the device lit up, sending a faint pulse through the air. Outside, the battlefield continued to burn. But now, something new was coming. Something that would change everything. The enemy within. The air inside the ruined bunker was thick with dust and the scent of dried blood. Ryan Carter leaned against the cold metal wall, his body aching from exhaustion. His breathing was ragged, but he wasn't sure if it was from his injuries or the weight of the situation he found himself in. The alien warrior, Karish, lay motionless beside him, his glowing blue eyes half closed, flickering between consciousness and the darkness threatening to claim him. The small device in Karish's trembling hand pulsed weakly, casting an eerie blue light across the bunker. Ryan frowned. What the hell did you just do? Karish's voice was barely above a whisper. Signal. Sent. Ryan stiffened. To who? A pause. The alien's eyes flickered with something Ryan couldn't quite read. Guilt? Fear? My people. Ryan's stomach twisted. Was that a good thing, or a mistake? Before he could press for answers, a sound outside made his blood run cold. Boots. Multiple boots. Ryan's fingers tightened around the knife in his belt. The enemy was back, and this time, they weren't just passing through. They were searching. He could hear them, alien voices speaking in their sharp, guttural language. The words meant nothing to him, but the tone sent a clear message. They were looking for survivors, looking to kill. Ryan turned his head slightly toward Karish. The alien's eyes were open, and for the first time, Ryan saw something sharp in them. Not pain, not weakness. Rage. Karish hated these soldiers. Ryan didn't have time to ask why. Footsteps were approaching the bunker entrance, and his heartbeat pounded like a drum inside his chest. Think. 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 They had no weapons except his knife, and Karish was too weak to fight. If the enemy found them— Ryan glanced around, eyes scanning the broken walls, the fallen debris, the jagged pieces of metal. Something. Anything. A faint glow caught his eye. A plasma rifle, half buried under rubble, next to a dead alien soldier. It was a gamble. If he moved too fast, the enemy might hear. If he waited too long, they might walk in and shoot on sight. No choice. Ryan sucked in a breath and lunged. The moment he moved, the bunker door creaked. Ryan froze, fingers inches from the weapon. They were coming in. His heart pounded as he forced himself to grab the rifle and roll behind a pile of wreckage just as the door was kicked open. 3 alien soldiers stepped inside, weapons raised. Their glowing visors swept the room, scanning for movement. Ryan kept low, gripping the plasma rifle tight. He didn't know if it even worked, but if they saw him, he'd have one chance. The lead soldier took a step forward. His helmet's scanner beeped. Ryan's stomach dropped. They knew. The soldier barked an order, and the others raised their rifles. They were about to fire. Before Ryan could react, a deep guttural sound echoed through the bunker. A snarl. Ryan's eyes snapped toward Karish. The alien warrior, still weak, had pushed himself up, his body trembling with effort. But his eyes, they were blazing with fury. One of the soldiers hesitated. Karish. Ryan's brain stalled. They knew him. Karish bared his teeth. His voice was hoarse but filled with venom. You betrayed us. The soldiers tensed. Ryan's grip on the plasma rifle tightened. Then, chaos. Karish moved. Despite his wounds, despite his weakness, the alien launched forward, using the last of his strength. He grabbed the nearest soldier by the throat and slammed him against the bunker wall with a force that cracked metal. The others reacted instantly, raising their weapons. Ryan fired first. The plasma rifle roared, sending a blue bolt through the air. It struck one of the soldiers in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. The last soldier spun, firing wildly. Ryan ducked just as Karish twisted the first soldier's neck with a sickening crack. The final soldier turned to flee. Karish lunged, yanking the plasma rifle from his hands and driving a blade straight into his stomach. The bunker fell silent. Only the sound of Ryan's heavy breathing and Karish's ragged gasps remained. Ryan lowered his rifle, his hands shaking. What the hell just happened? Karish staggered, gripping the bunker wall for support. His blue blood dripped onto the floor, mixing with the fresh bodies. Ryan exhaled sharply. "Okay," he said, wiping the sweat from his face. "I have a few questions." Karish's glowing eyes met his. "Ask." Ryan pointed at the dead soldiers. "Why did they know your name?" Karish hesitated. Then, with great effort, he sat down, leaning heavily against the cold metal wall. "They were my kind," he admitted, his voice laced with something bitter. "But they were not my people." Ryan frowned. "What does that mean?" Karish closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. Then he looked at Ryan, his gaze burning despite his exhaustion. "My people were betrayed," he said. "My own kind turned against us. Sided with your enemies." Ryan felt a cold chill crawl down his spine. He had assumed this war was simple, humans versus aliens. But it wasn't. It was bigger than that. Karish's fingers curled into a fist. "They killed my family," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "And now, they hunt me." Ryan stared at him. This war wasn't just about humans and aliens. There were traitors, factions, hidden battles beneath the surface. He exhaled slowly. "So, that signal you sent, it wasn't to them, was it?" Karish shook his head. "No." His glowing blue eyes darkened. "It was to those who still believe." Ryan absorbed this, his mind racing. This war was more complicated than he ever realized. And now, he was right in the middle of it. Before he could process what this meant, a sudden beeping noise filled the air. Ryan tensed. What's that? Karish's lips curled slightly. My people. They're coming. Ryan swallowed hard. He really hoped that was a good thing. A strange bond. The bunker was eerily silent after the fight. Only the slow, pained breathing of Ryan Carter and Karish filled the space. The bodies of the fallen enemy soldiers lay motionless on the cold metal floor, their blood, blue and red, mixing in the dim light. Ryan wiped the sweat from his forehead with a shaky hand. His muscles burned, his wounds throbbed, and exhaustion pressed on him like a heavy weight. But he was still alive. Across from him, Karish sat slumped against the bunker wall. His glowing blue eyes flickered with weakness, but the fire inside them had not gone out. His body was battered, his armor shattered, but he had survived. For now. Ryan exhaled, shaking his head. You've got some serious issues, you know that. Karish managed a weak chuckle. And you are a strange human. Ryan scoffed. You say that like I didn't just save your life. Karish met his gaze. And yet you question why you did. Ryan fell silent. The alien was right. He had no idea why he was doing this, why he had risked everything to drag an enemy out of danger, why he was sitting in this ruined bunker, bleeding, exhausted, waiting for a rescue that might never come. He should have left Karish behind, should have only cared about himself. But he didn't, and he had no good answer for why. Ryan let out a tired sigh. Well, I'm stuck with you now, aren't I? Karish tilted his head slightly, something like amusement flickering across his features. Seems that way. A low beeping sound echoed from the corner of the bunker, and both of them stiffened. Ryan's fingers curled around the plasma rifle as he turned toward the noise. His body tensed. More enemy soldiers. But Karish didn't reach for his weapon. Instead, he slowly pulled out the small device he had activated earlier, the one that had sent a signal into the unknown. The beeping grew louder, and Karish's glowing blue eyes darkened. They are close, he murmured. Ryan narrowed his eyes. Your people? Karish nodded. If they receive my call, they will come. Ryan exhaled, his grip on the rifle loosening slightly. He wanted to believe that was good news, but he wasn't sure. You trust them? Ryan asked carefully. Karish hesitated. I must. That wasn't exactly reassuring. Ryan shifted, trying to push himself up, but his legs almost gave out. He let out a grunt of pain and collapsed back against the cold metal wall, pressing a hand to his injured ribs. Damn, he was worse off than he thought. Karish observed him for a long moment. Then, before Ryan could protest, the alien reached out, pressing 2 fingers against Ryan's temple. A strange warmth spread through his skull, like a pulse of energy flowing into his body. Ryan's first instinct was to pull away, but something stopped him. The pain in his ribs eased slightly. His breathing grew steadier. The dizziness in his vision faded just a little. Ryan blinked. What did you do? Karish withdrew his hand, his own body trembling with weakness. Shared energy, he rasped. Not much, but enough to help. Ryan stared at him. He had just been healed. By an alien. By his enemy. Ryan didn't know how to feel about that. For a long moment, they just sat there, staring at each other. 2 soldiers from opposite sides of a war that neither of them fully understood. 2 enemies who had saved each other's lives. And in that moment, Ryan realized something strange. Karish wasn't just some alien anymore. He was a person. Someone who had lost his people. Someone who had been betrayed. Someone who, despite everything, had chosen to trust Ryan. Ryan let out a long breath and leaned back against the wall. You better hope your people get here soon, he muttered. Because if they don't, we're both dead. Karish gave a weak nod. They will come. Ryan wasn't sure if he believed that. But at this point, he had no choice. Hours later, Ryan wasn't sure how much time had passed. His body felt heavy, his eyelids drooping from exhaustion. He was running on nothing but adrenaline now. Karish was worse off. His breathing had grown shallower, his wounds bleeding through the makeshift bandages Ryan had wrapped around him. He wouldn't last much longer. Ryan swallowed hard, gripping the plasma rifle tighter. He had to stay awake, had to keep watch. Then, movement. A sound outside the bunker. Something approaching. Ryan tensed, raising the rifle, his heart pounding. If it was enemy soldiers, this was it. He was too weak for another fight. But the moment the first figure stepped into view, Ryan knew something was different. They weren't wearing the same armor as the enemy troops. Their movements were smooth, precise, but not aggressive. The figure was tall, wrapped in dark battle gear, their face hidden beneath a high-tech mask that glowed with faint blue light. Karish stirred beside him, his eyes flickering open. He looked toward the figure, and for the first time, relief crossed his face. "You came," Karish rasped. The figure lowered their hood, revealing dark blue skin, sharp features, and glowing eyes similar to Karish's. But unlike the enemy soldiers they had fought, these eyes held something else. Not hatred, not violence. Recognition. A deep voice spoke in a language Ryan couldn't understand, but Karish nodded weakly in response. Then the alien turned toward Ryan, tilting their head slightly. Their gaze was unreadable, analyzing him. Ryan tightened his grip on his rifle, unsure of what was about to happen next. Then, the alien extended a hand. Ryan hesitated. A choice. He could take the hand, step into the unknown, trust Karish's people, or he could refuse, remain alone, keep fighting a war he didn't understand. Karish weakly turned his head toward Ryan. "Come with us," he whispered. "You saved me. Now, let me save you." Ryan's heart pounded. The war had always been black and white to him. Humans versus aliens. Fight or die. But now it was so much more. Ryan looked at Karish, then at the outstretched hand of the alien warrior before him. For the first time, he wasn't sure who the real enemy was. Slowly, cautiously, he made his choice. He reached out and took the alien's hand. The last stand. Ryan Carter's hand tightened around the alien warrior's as he stepped forward. The cold, firm grip of the blue-skinned soldier sent a shiver down his spine. He wasn't sure if it was from fear, exhaustion, or the weight of the decision he had just made. There was no turning back now. The other aliens, Karish's people, moved swiftly, securing the area with practiced efficiency. Their armor was sleek and dark, built for speed rather than brute force. Their weapons hummed with a quiet but deadly energy. These were not the same soldiers they had fought earlier. These were warriors. One of them, clearly a leader, spoke to Karish in their sharp, unfamiliar language. Ryan couldn't understand the words, but he could hear the concern in their tone. They were worried about Karish's injuries. Ryan stepped closer, watching as they carefully lifted Karish onto a floating stretcher. His breathing was weak, but his eyes remained open. Barely. Karish turned his head toward Ryan. "You are one of us now," he whispered. Ryan frowned. "I don't even know what us means yet." Karish gave a weak, knowing smile. "You will." Before Ryan could question him further, the leader of the alien warriors turned toward him, their glowing eyes unreadable. They studied him for a long moment, then finally spoke. "Human," they said in rough but understandable English. "You fight well." Ryan tensed. "Yeah, well, I didn't have much of a choice." The alien gave a slow nod. "Nor do you now. The enemy hunts us. They come." Ryan's grip on his plasma rifle tightened. "How many?" The alien warrior tilted their head, pressing a device on their wrist. A small holographic display flickered to life. Ryan's stomach dropped. "Dozens. No, hundreds." Enemy soldiers were moving in from all directions, their forces closing in on the bunker. There were drones, armored units, and something even worse, a massive warship descending through the thick clouds of smoke. Ryan felt his heart pound. They weren't just sending troops. They were sending an execution. He turned to the alien leader. "You guys have a way out of here, right?" The alien hesitated. Ryan clenched his jaw. "That's not an answer." Karish's voice, weak but determined, cut through the air. "We hold here. We fight." Ryan's eyes widened. "Are you insane?" He gestured at the display. "There's an army out there." Karish's glowing eyes locked onto his. "And if we run, they will follow. They will never stop." The leader of the alien warriors gave a slow nod. "Karish speaks truth. If we do not stand now, we will always run." Ryan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his sweat-soaked hair. This was suicide. But he also knew they were right. If they didn't fight here, if they didn't break the enemy's will, then there would be no end. They would be hunted until there was nothing left. Ryan looked down at his rifle. He was just one man. What difference could he make? Then he looked at Karish, at the warriors around him, at the faces of those who had been betrayed, hunted, pushed to the brink of extinction. And he realized this wasn't just their fight anymore. It was his. Ryan straightened, rolling his shoulders despite the pain. He turned to the alien leader. "All right," he said, exhaling. "If we're making a last stand, let's make it count." The battle begins. The air vibrated with the sound of approaching warships. The ground trembled beneath them. Ryan could see the faint glimmers of enemy forces moving through the smoke, their shadows shifting against the flames of the battlefield. He took a deep breath. No fear, no hesitation, just survival. The alien warriors moved quickly, setting up makeshift defenses around the bunker. Energy shields flickered into place, and automated turrets powered up with a low hum. Ryan took position near the entrance, his rifle at the ready. His fingers twitched over the trigger as the first drone scouts swept in. The alien leader raised a hand. "Hold." Ryan's muscles tensed. The drones scanned the area, their red lights cutting through the darkness. One wrong move and they would be spotted. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, suddenly, one of the drones beeped. Ryan saw the moment it locked onto them, its red light flashing. An alarm. The leader hissed a command. The battlefield exploded. Turrets roared to life, cutting the drones out of the sky in a shower of sparks. Plasma bolts flew through the air as enemy soldiers rushed forward, their weapons lighting up the darkness. Ryan fired, his shots landing dead on. The first enemy soldier collapsed. The second barely had time to react before Ryan took him down with another burst of plasma fire. The battle was pure chaos. The alien warriors moved like ghosts, their speed unmatched as they weaved through enemy fire, cutting down soldiers with precise, deadly efficiency. Ryan fought alongside them, his instincts sharper than ever. He wasn't just a human soldier anymore. He was fighting for something bigger. For survival. For Karish. For the truth that had been buried beneath the lies of war. The final push. The enemy forces kept coming. For every soldier they took down, more replaced them. The warship loomed overhead, its weapons charging. Ryan's mind raced. They needed to end this. Now. Then, Karish moved. Despite his injuries, despite the blood loss, the alien warrior stood. His body shook, but his eyes burned with determination. Ryan turned. "What the hell are you doing?" Karish didn't answer. Instead, he raised his hands, and for the first time, Ryan saw what he truly was. A pulse of energy erupted from Karish's chest. The air vibrated. The ground shook. And suddenly, the warship overhead stopped. Ryan's breath caught in his throat as the massive machine froze in midair, its engines sputtering. The enemy soldiers hesitated. Their weapons flickered. Their movements slowed. Ryan turned back to Karish, his heart hammering. "What are you doing?" Karish's glowing blue eyes met his. "My core," he whispered. "One last time." Ryan realized Karish was using the last of his energy. To end this. To save them. Ryan's throat tightened. You don't have to do this. Karish smiled. But I do. Then, with one final breath, Karish released it all. A massive energy wave erupted from his body, slamming into the warship above. The sky turned white. And then, the ship exploded. Flames and debris rained down as the enemy forces scattered in panic. The battle was over. Ryan barely caught Karish as he collapsed. Hey, Ryan whispered, gripping his friend's shoulders. Stay with me. Karish's breathing was slow, weak. His eyes fluttered. Did we win? Ryan swallowed past the lump in his throat. Yeah, he whispered. Yeah, we did. Karish's lips curled into the faintest smile. And then, with one last breath, he was gone. The final breath. Silence. The battlefield, once filled with the screams of war, the roar of gunfire, and the deafening hum of energy weapons, was now eerily quiet. Smoke curled into the sky, blotting out the fading sun. Ryan Carter knelt on the blood-stained ground, his hand still gripping Karish's lifeless body. His chest rose and fell in ragged breaths, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. Karish's glowing blue eyes, once so fierce, so filled with fire, had dulled. His body, once powerful, once full of energy, had gone still. The pulse of his energy core was gone. Ryan's fingers clenched around Karish's armor. No. The word escaped his lips, barely a whisper. Karish had saved them all, and it had cost him everything. The massive enemy warship still burned overhead, its wreckage falling in flaming pieces across the battlefield. The enemy forces had scattered, thrown into disarray, their strongest weapon destroyed. But Karish was gone. Ryan felt his own body tremble, not from fear, not from exhaustion, but from something deeper. Loss. He had spent his entire life seeing aliens as enemies, fighting them, killing them. But Karish had been different. And now he was dead. Ryan squeezed his eyes shut, his breath coming out in short gasps. He wasn't sure if it was grief, pain, or just pure exhaustion, but he felt like his body was breaking apart. Then, a shadow fell over him. Ryan's instincts screamed at him to move, to raise his rifle, to fight. But when he looked up, he didn't see an enemy. He saw Karish's people. The alien warriors, those who had arrived to save Karish, now stood in a circle around him. Their dark armor gleamed in the fading light, their glowing eyes locked onto Ryan with unreadable expressions. One of them, the leader, the one who had reached out to Ryan before, took a slow step forward. Ryan tensed, his grip tightening on Karish's body. If they were here to take him away, they would have to fight him for it. The leader knelt. His gaze swept over Karish's motionless form, then lifted to meet Ryan's. And then, he did something unexpected. He bowed his head. Ryan blinked. He hadn't realized he had been holding his breath until it came out in a shaky exhale. The other warriors followed, lowering their heads in unison. They weren't here to take Karish. They were here to honor him. Ryan swallowed hard, his throat tight. His fingers slowly loosened their grip. The leader spoke in his deep, accented voice. He was the last of his kind. Ryan's heart stopped. He looked up sharply. What? The leader's glowing eyes darkened. Karish was the last warrior of the true lineage, the last who carried the old ways. Ryan's breath caught in his chest. The last. Karish had never told him that. He had fought, had sacrificed, knowing he had no one left, no family, no future, and he had still chosen to save Ryan. Ryan's jaw tightened, his eyes burning. Then we make sure he's not forgotten. The alien leader regarded him for a long moment, then nodded. Come, we must leave this place. Ryan hesitated. He didn't want to leave. He didn't want to walk away from Karish. But Karish wouldn't have wanted him to die here. Slowly, painfully, Ryan pushed himself to his feet, His legs felt like lead, his muscles screamed in protest, but he forced himself to stand tall. The leader raised a hand, signaling to the others. A few of them moved forward, carefully lifting Karish's body. Ryan clenched his fists, forcing down the wave of emotion that threatened to break him. Karish deserved a warrior's farewell, and Ryan would make sure he got it. The journey through the stars. The alien warriors moved swiftly, leading Ryan toward their waiting starship, a sleek, black vessel hidden beneath the wreckage of the battlefield. As they approached, Ryan felt his heart hammer in his chest. He had fought against alien ships for years. Now he was about to step inside one. The leader glanced at him. "You hesitate." Ryan exhaled sharply. "Not every day I take a ride with aliens." The leader's lips curled slightly. "Not every day we take a human with us." That didn't exactly make him feel better. The warriors carried Karish's body aboard first, placing him on an altar-like platform at the center of the ship. A soft blue light surrounded him, illuminating his peaceful face. Ryan hesitated again. Then, with one last look at the burning battlefield behind him, he took a deep breath and stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, the doors sealed behind him with a quiet hiss. The ship's interior was unlike anything he had ever seen. Smooth, organic, almost alive. Glowing lines ran across the walls, pulsing like veins. The leader gestured for Ryan to follow. "Come." Ryan followed, his gaze flickering around warily. He was trusting them. But was he right to? They reached what seemed to be the command center. The large windows stretched across the front, revealing the burning planet below. The leader placed a hand against a glowing panel, and the ship shuddered as it began to rise. Ryan's stomach flipped. He had been in human warships before, but this was different. Smoother, faster, deadlier. The leader turned to him. "You are not afraid." Ryan let out a short, humorless laugh. "Oh, I'm terrified." The alien warrior studied him, then nodded. "Good. Fear means you still wish to live." Ryan sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. "So, what now?" The leader's gaze turned to the body of Karish, lying beneath the blue light. "Now," he said quietly, "we honor the fallen." Ryan swallowed past the lump in his throat. He stepped forward, his fingers brushing against the cool metal of the altar. Karish had given everything. And now, Ryan would make sure it hadn't been in vain. He clenched his fist. "Wherever this fight goes next," he said, voice steady, "I'm in." The leader's glowing eyes met his, and in that moment, Ryan was no longer just a soldier. He was something more. Something Karish had seen in him from the very beginning. The legacy lives on. The ship moved silently through the vast darkness of space, leaving behind the battlefield where Ryan Carter had once stood as a soldier, fighting for a cause he barely understood. Now, he wasn't sure what he was anymore. A soldier? A survivor? A traitor to his own kind? Or was he something more? Ryan stood near the large viewing window, staring at the distant planet below. The fires of war still raged in some areas, but the battle was over. The enemy had been shattered. Karish had made sure of that. Ryan clenched his fists. Karish was gone, but his legacy wasn't. Behind him, the alien warriors moved in coordinated silence. They were efficient, disciplined, but there was something else, something Ryan hadn't expected. Grief. Even without understanding their language completely, Ryan could feel it in the way they moved. Karish had mattered to them. He had been the last of something important. Ryan turned from the window and faced the alien leader, the one who had taken charge after Karish's death. His name was Valerith, and his presence was commanding. His armor, sleek and dark, carried markings that Ryan had begun to recognize as symbols of Karish's people. Karish's lost people. Ryan stepped forward. "Where are we going?" Valerith's glowing blue eyes met his. "To the last sanctuary." Ryan frowned. "Sanctuary." Valerith turned, gesturing for him to follow. Ryan hesitated for only a second before walking beside him. He wasn't a prisoner here. Not exactly. But he also knew he wasn't fully trusted. Not yet. As they moved through the ship, Ryan took in its design. Everything felt alive. The walls pulsed with energy, faint patterns shifting beneath their surface, as if the ship itself was breathing. He finally spoke again. Karish said he was the last of his kind. Valerith didn't turn. He was. Ryan frowned. But you're here. His people are here. Valerith's jaw tightened. We are not his people. Not truly. Ryan felt his stomach sink. Then who are you? Valerith finally stopped, turning to face him fully. We are the exiled. The remnants. The ones who refused to betray. Ryan exhaled. And Karish. The alien leader's voice was quiet, yet filled with weight. Karish was royalty. Ryan froze. Wait. What? Valerith nodded. He was the last true heir of the first lineage. The rulers before the war. The ones who refused to bow to your kind's enemies. When the war began, his people were hunted. Betrayed by their own kind. Ryan's heart pounded. He had fought beside a king. And now, he was gone. Ryan swallowed hard. So why didn't you tell me this before? Valerith studied him for a long moment before answering. Because you were not one of us. Ryan clenched his jaw. And now? Valerith turned, leading him toward a large, circular room at the heart of the ship. The walls shimmered with shifting energy, forming symbols Ryan didn't recognize. At the center of the room was Karish's body. He lay on a raised platform, surrounded by a soft blue glow. His armor had been carefully cleaned, his weapons placed beside him. It wasn't a burial. It was something more. A warrior's farewell. Ryan swallowed the lump in his throat as Valerith stepped forward. The alien leader raised a hand, and the room hummed with power. The energy surrounding Karish's body began to shift, swirling upward like mist. The symbols on the walls pulsed, and a deep resonant sound filled the chamber. A song, but not one made of words. Ryan felt it more than heard it. It was memory, honor, sacrifice. It was Karish. Ryan's hands curled into fists. He had fought beside Karish. He had watched him give everything to save not just his people, but Ryan as well. He wasn't going to let that be for nothing. When the ritual finally ended, the energy around Karish's body faded into the air, dispersing into the ship itself. Valerith turned to Ryan. You are human. Ryan exhaled. Yeah, I got that. Valerith studied him for a long moment before speaking again. But you are also Karish's last warrior. Ryan stiffened. What does that mean? The alien leader took a step forward. You fought beside him. You bled for him. And he bled for you. You carry his memory now. Ryan's chest tightened. And what exactly do I do with that? Valerith's gaze was piercing. You fight. Ryan let out a bitter chuckle. I've been fighting my whole damn life. Valerith tilted his head slightly. Then fight for something that matters. Ryan swallowed hard. He looked at the empty platform where Karish had once laid. His mind flashed back to the battle. To Karish's final words. Tell them, we're not enemies. Ryan took a deep breath and looked back at Valerith. All right, he said, voice steady. What's the plan? The alien leader smiled for the first time. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. The war is not over, he said. But now, you are fighting for the right side. Ryan exhaled, rolling his shoulders despite the exhaustion in his bones. Guess I better not screw it up then. Valerith turned, activating a display. A holographic galactic map flickered into existence. Ryan's eyes widened as he saw the sheer scale of the conflict. It wasn't just one war. It was many. And now he was part of something much, much bigger than he had ever imagined. He took one last look at the platform where Karish had been. Then, without hesitation, he turned toward the future. Because now, he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for Karish, for the people Karish had died for something greater, and he would not fail. The end, or the beginning.